Rooms. Act so that there is no use in a center. A wide action is not a width. A preparation is given to the ones preparing. They do not eat who mention silver and sweet. There was an occupation. A whole center and a border make hanging a way of dressing. This which is not why there is a voice is the remains of an offering. There was no rental. So the tune which is there has a little piece to play, and the exercise is all there is of a fast. The tender and true that makes no width to hew is the time that there is question to adopt. To begin the placing there is no wagon, there is no change lighter. It was done, and then the spreading. That was not accomplishing, that needed standing, and yet the time was not so difficult as they were not all in place. They had no change. They were not respected. They were that. They did it so much in the matter, and this showed that the settlement was not condensed. It was spread there. Any change was in the ends of the center. A heap was heavy. There was no change. Burnt and behind and lifting a temporary stone and lifting more than a drawer. The instance of there being more is an instance of more. The shadow is not shifting. In the way there is a black line. The truth has come. There is a disturbance. Trusting to a baker's boy meant that there would be very much exchanging, and anyway, what is the use of covering to a door? There is a use. They are double.
If the center has the place, then there is distribution. That is natural. There is a contradiction, and naturally returning there comes to be both sides and the center. That can be seen from the description. The author of all that is in there behind the door and that is entering in the morning. Explaining, darkening, and expecting relating is all of a piece. The stove is bigger. It was of a shape that made no audience bigger. If the opening is assumed, why should there not be kneeling? Any force which is bestowed on a floor shows rubbing. This is so nice and sweet, and yet there comes the change, there comes the time to press more air. This does not mean the same as disappearance. A little lingering lion and a Chinese chair, all the handsome cheese which is stone, all of it, and a choice of a blotter. It is difficult to do it one way. There is no place of similar trouble. None. The whole arrangement is established, the end of which is that there is a suggestion that there can be a different whiteness to a wall. This was thought. A page to a corner means that the shame is no greater when the table is longer. A glass is of any height, it is higher, it is simpler, and if it were placed there would not be any doubt. Something that is an erection is that which stands and feeds and silences a tin which is swelling. This makes no diversion, that is to say, what can please exaltation, that which is cooking. A shine is that which when covered changes permission. An enclosure blends with the same, that is to say, there is blending. A blend is that which holds no mice, and this is not because of a floor, it is because of nothing. It is not in a vision.
The fact is that when the place was replaced, all was left that was stored, and all was retained that would not satisfy more than another. The question is this: is it possible to suggest more to replace that thing? This question and this perfect denial does make the time change all the time. The sister was not a mister. Was this a surprise? It was. The conclusion came when there was no arrangement. All the time that there was a question, there was a decision. Replacing a casual acquaintance with an ordinary daughter does not make a son. It happened in a way that the time was perfect, and there was growth of a whole dividing time, so that where formerly there was no mistake, there was no mistake now. For instance, before there was a separation, there was a waiting. Now when there is separation, there is the division between intending and departing. This made no more mixture than there would be if there had been no change. A little sign of an entrance is the one that made it alike. If it were smaller, it was not alike, and it was so much smaller that a table was bigger. A table was much bigger, very much bigger. Changing that made nothing bigger. It did not make anything bigger littler. It did not hinder wood from being used as leather. And this was so charming. Harmony is so essential. Is there pleasure when there is a passage? There is when every room is open. Every room is open where there are not four. There were there, and surely there were four. There were two together. There is no resemblance.
A single speed, the reception of table linen, all the wonder of 6 little spoons. There is no exercise. The time came when there was a birthday. Every day was no excitement, and a birthday was added. It was added on Monday. This made the memory clear. This, which was a speech, showed the chair in the middle where there was copper. A like and a snail. This means Chinaman. It does, there is no doubt, that to be right is more perfect than there is no doubt. And glass is confusing. It confuses the substance which was of a color. Then came the time for discrimination. It came then, and it was never mentioned. It was so triumphant. It showed the whole head, then had a hole, and should have a hole. It showed the resemblance between silver. Startling a starving husband is not disagreeable. The reason that nothing is hidden is that there is no suggestion of silence. No song is sad. A lesson is of consequence. Blind and weak and organized and worried and betrothed and resumed and also asked to a fast and always asked to consider and never startled and not at all bloated. This, which is no rarer than frequently, is not so astonishing when hair brushing is added. There is quiet. There certainly is. No eyeglasses are rotten. No window is useless, and yet if air will not come in, there is a speech ready. There always is, and there is no dimness, not a bit of it. All along the tendency to deplore the absence of more has not been authorized. It comes to mean that with burning there is that pleasant state of stupefaction. Then there is a way of earning a living. Who is a man?
A silence is not indicated by any motion. Less is indicated by a motion. More is not indicated. It is enthralled. So sullen and so low, so much resignation, so much refusal, so much place for a lower and an upper. So much and yet more silence. Why is not sleeping a feat? Why is it not, and when is there some discharge when there never is? If comparing a piece, that is a size, that is recognized as not a size, but a piece, comparing a piece with what is not recognized, but what is used, as it is held by holding, comparing these two comes to be repeated. Suppose they are put together. Suppose that there is an interruption. Supposing that beginning again they are not changed as to position. Suppose all this, and suppose that any 5, 2 of whom are not separating. Suppose that the 5 are not consumed. Is there an exchange? Is there a resemblance to the sky which is admitted to be there, and the stars which can be seen? Is there? That was a question. There was no certainty. Fitting a failing meant that any two were indifferent, and yet they were all connecting that consideration. This did not determine rejoining a letter. This did not make letters smaller. It did. The stamp that is not only torn, but also fitting, is not any symbol. It suggests nothing. A sack that has no opening suggests more, and the loss is not commensurate. The season gliding and the torn hangings receiving, mending, all this shows an example. It shows the force of sacrifice and likeness and disaster and a reason. Time. The time when there is not the question is only seen when there is a shower. Any little thing is water. There was a whole collection made, a damp cloth, an oyster, a single mirror, a mannequin, a student, a silent star, a single spark, a little movement, and the bed is made. This shows the disorder. It does. It shows more likeness than anything else. It does. It shows the single mind that directs an apple. All the coats have a different shape. That does not mean they differ in color. It means a union between use and exercise and a horse. A plain hill, one is not that, which is not white and red and green. A plain hill makes no sunshine. It shows that without a disturber. So the shape is there, and the color, and the outline, and the miserable center. It is not very likely that there is a center. A hill is a hill, and no hill is contained in a pink tender descender. A can containing a curtain is the solid, sentimental usage. The trouble in both eyes does not come from the same symmetrical carpet. It comes from there being no more disturbance than in little paper. This does show the teeth. It shows color. A measure is that which, put up so that it shows the length, has a steel construction. Tidiness is not delicacy. It does not destroy the whole piece. Certainly that it has been measured and nothing has been cut off, and even if that has been lost, there is a name. No name is signed and left over. Not any space is fitted, so that moving about is plentiful. Why is there so much resignation in a package? Why is there rain? All the same, the chance has come. There is no bell to ring. A package, and a filter, and even a funnel, all this together makes a scene. And supposing the question arises, is hair curly? Is it dark and dusty? Supposing that question arises, is brushing necessary? Is it? The whole special suddenness commences then. There is no delusion.
A cape is a cover. A cape is not a cover in summer. A cape is a cover, and the regulation is that there is no such weather. A cape is not always a cover. A cape is not a cover when there's another. There is always something in that thing establishing a disposition to put wetting where it will not do more harm. There's always that disposition, and in a way, there is some use in not harm. In not mentioning changing, and in establishing the temperature, there is some use in it as establishing all that lives dimmer, freer, and there is no dinner in the middle of anything. There is no such thing. Why is a pale white not paler than blue? Why is a connection made by a stove? Why is the example which is mentioned not shown to be the same? Why is there no adjustment between the place and the separate attention? Why is there a choice in gambling? Why is there no necessary dull stable? Why is there a single piece of any color? Why is there that sensible silence? Why is there the resistance in a mixture? Why is there no poster? Why is that in the window? Why is there no suggesture? Why is there no window? Why is there no oyster closer? Why is there a circular diminisher? Why is there a bather? Why is there no scraper? Why is there a dinner? Why is there a bell ringer? Why is there a duster? And why is there a section of similar resemblance? Why is there that scissor?
South, south, which is a wind, is not rain. Does silence choke speech, or does it not?
Lying in a conundrum. Lying so makes the springs restless. Lying so is a reduction. Not lying so is arrangeable. Releasing the oldest auction that is pleasing, some still renewing. Giving it away, not giving it away. Is there any difference? Giving it away, not giving it away. Almost very likely there is no seduction. Almost very likely there is no stream. Certainly very likely the height is penetrated. Certainly the target is cleaned. Come to sit, come to refuse, come to surround. Come slowly, and age is not lessening. The time which showed that was when there was no eclipse. All the time that resenting was removal, all the time there was breadth. No breadth is shadowed, no breadth is painstaking, and yet certainly what could be the use of paper? Paper shows no disorder. It shows no desertion. Why is there difference between one window and another? Why is there a difference? Because the curtain is shorter. There is no distaste in beefsteak or in plums or in gallons of milk water. There is no defiance in original piling up over a roof. There is no daylight in the evening. There is none. They're empty. A tribune does not mean paper. It means nothing more than cake. It means more sugar. It shows the state of lengthening any nose. The last spice is that which shows the whole evening spent in that sleep. It shows so that walking is an alleviation. And yet this astonishes everybody, the distance is so sprightly. In all the time there are 3 days, those are not passed uselessly. Any little thing is a change, that is, if nothing is wasted in that cellar. All the rest of the chairs are established. A success. A success is all right when there are rooms and no vacancies. A success is all right when there is a package. Success is all right anyway, and any curtain is wholesale. A curtain diminishes, and an ample space shows varnish. One taste, one tack. One taste, one bottle. One taste, one fish. One taste, one barometer. This shows no distinguishing sign when there is a store. Any smile is stern, and any coat is a sample. Is there any use in changing more doors than there are committees? The question is so often asked that squares show that they are blotters. It is so very agreeable to hear a voice and to see all the signs of that expression. Cadences. Real cadences. Real cadences and a quiet color. Careful and curved, cake and somber, all accounts and mixture. A guess at anything is righteous. Should there be a call, there would be a voice.
A line in life, a single line and a stairway, a rigid cook, and no equator. All the same, there is higher than that another evasion. Did that mean shame? It meant memory. Looking into a place that was hanging and was visible, looking into this place and seeing a chair, did that mean relief? It did. It certainly did not cause constipation, yet there is a melody that was white for a tune when there is straw color. This shows no face. Starlight. What is starlight? Starlight is a little light that is not always mentioned with the sun. It is mentioned with the moon and the sun. It is mixed up with the rest of the time. Why is the name changed? The name is changed because the little space there is a tree. In some space there are no trees. In every space there is a hint of more. All this causes the decision. Why is there education? There is education because the two tables which are folding are not tied together with a ribbon. String is used, and string being used, there is a necessity for another one, and another one, not being used to hearing, shows no ordinary use of any evening, and yet there is no disgrace in looking. None at all. This came to separate when there was simple selection of an entire preoccupation. A curtain. A curtain which is fastened discloses morning. This does not mean sparrows or elocution, or even a whole preparation. It means that there are ears, and very often much more altogether. Climate. Climate is not southern. A little glass, a bright winter, a strange supper, an elastic tumbler. All this shows that the back is furnished, and red, which is red, is a dark color. An example of this is 15 years and a separation of regret. China is not down when there are plates. Lights are not ponderous and incalculable.
Currents. Currents are not in the air and on the floor and in the door and behind it first. Currents do not show it plainer. This which is mastered has so thin a space to build it all that there is plenty of room, and yet is it quarreling? It is not, and the insistence is marked. A change is in a current, and there is no habitable exercise. A religion, almost a religion, any religion, a quintal in religion, a relying and a surface and a service in indecision, and a creature and a question, and a syllable in answer, and more counting, and no quarrel, and a single scientific statement, and no darkness and no question, and an earned administration, and a single set of sisters, and an outline, and no blisters, and the section seeing yellow, and the center having spelling, and no solitude, and no quaintness, and yet solid, quite so solid, and the single surface centered, and the question in the placard, and the singularity, is there a singularity, and the singularity, why is there a question, and the singularity, why is the surface outrageous, why is it beautiful, why is it not when there is no doubt? Why is anything vacant? Why is not disturbing a center no virtue? Why is it when it is, and why is it when it is, and there is no doubt? There is no doubt that the singularity shows. A climate, a single climate. All the time there is a single climate, any time there is a doubt, any time there is music that is to question more and more, and there is no politeness. There is hardly any ordeal, and certainly there is no tablecloth. This is a sound, and obligingness, more obligingness leads to a harmony in hesitation. A lake, a single lake, which is a pond and a little water, any water which is an ant, and no burning, not any burning. All this is sudden. A canister, that is the remains of furniture, and a looking-glass, and a bedroom, and a larger size. All the stand is shouted, and what is ancient is practical. Should the resemblance be so that any little cover is copied? Should it be so that yards are measured? Should it be so, and there be a sin? Should it be so, then certainly a room is big enough when it is so empty, and the corners are gathered together. The change is mercenary that settles whitening the coloring and serving dishes where there is metal and making yellow any yellow every color in a shade which is expressed in a tray. This is a monster, and awkward, quite awkward, in the little design which is flowered, which is not strange, and yet has visible writing. This is not shown all the time, but at once after that it rests where it is, and where it is in place. No change is not needed. That does show design. Excellent. More excellence is borrowing, and slanting, very slanting, is light and secret, and a recitation and emigration. Certainly shoals are shallow, and nonsense, more nonsense, is sullen. Very little cake is water. Very little cake has that escape.
Sugar any sugar, anger every anger, lover sermon lover, center no distractor. All order is in a measure. Left over to be a lamplight, left over in a victory, left over in saving, all this in negligence and bent wood, and more, even much more, is not so exact as a pin and a turtle, and even, certainly, and even a piece of the same experience as more. To consider a lecture, to consider it well, is so anxious and so much a charity, and really supposing there is a grain, and if a stubble, every stubble, is urgent, will there not be a chance of legality? The sound is sickened, and the price is purchased, and golden what is golden, a clergyman, a single tax, a currency, and an inner chamber. Checking an immigration, checking it by smiling, and certainly by the same satisfactory stretch of hands that have more use for it than nothing, and mildly, not mildly, a correction, not mildly even a circumstance, and a sweetness, and a serenity. Powder that has no color, if it did have, would it be white? A whole soldier, any whole soldier, has no more detail than any case of measles. A bridge, a very small bridge, in a location, and thunder, any thunder, this is the capture of reversible sizing, and more indeed, more can be cautious. This which makes monotony careless, makes it likely that there is an exchange in principle, and more than that, change in organization. This cloud does change with the movements of the moon and the quite narrow, suggestion of the building. It does, and then, when it is settled and no sounds differ, then comes the moment when cheerfulness is assured that there is an occasion. A plain lap, any plain lap, shows that sign. It shows that there is not so much extension as there would be if there were more choice in everything. And why complain of more? Why complain of very much more? Why complain at all when it is all arranged, that all there is no more opportunity and no more appeal, and not even any more clinching, and certainly now sometimes has come. A window has another spelling. It has F altogether. It lacks no more than, and this is rain. This may even be something else. At any rate, there is no dedication in splendor. There is a turn of the stranger. Catholic to be turned is to venture on youth and a section of debate. It even means that no class where each one over 50 is regular is so stationary that there are invitations.
A curving example makes righteous fingernails. This is the only object in secretion and speech. To being the same, four are no more than were taller. The rest had a big chair and a surveillance, a cold accumulation of nausea, and even more than that, they had a disappointment. Nothing aiming is a flower. If flowers are abundant, then they are lilac. If they are not, they are white in the center. Dance a clean dream and an extravagant turn-up, secure the steady rights, and translate more than translate the authority. Show the choice, and make no more mistakes than yesterday. This means clearness. It means a regular notion of exercise. It means more than that. It means liking counting. It means more than that. It does not mean exchanging a line. Why is there more craving than there is in a mountain? This does not seem strange to one. It does not seem strange to an echo, and more surely is in there not being a habit. Why is there so much useless suffering? Why is there? Any wet weather means an open window. What is attaching eating? Anything that is violent and cooking and shows weather is the same in the end. And why is there more use in something than in all that?
The cases are made in books. Back books are used to secure tiers in church. They're even used to exchange black slippers. They cannot be mended with wax. They show no need of any such occasion. A willow and no window, a wide place stranger. A wideness makes an active center. The sight of no pussycat is different than a tobacco zone. The sight of no pussycat is so different that a tobacco zone is white and cream. A lilac, all lilac, and no mention of butter. Not even bread and butter. Not even butter and no occasion. Not even a silent resemblance. Not more care than just enough haughty. A safe weight is that which, when it pleases, is hanging. A safer weight is one more naughty in a spectacle. The best game is that which is shiny and scratching. Please, appease, and a cracker, and a wretched use of summer. Surprise, the only surprise has no occasion. It is an ingredient, and the whole section is one season. A pecking which is petting and no worse than in the same morning is not the only way to be continuous often. A light in the moon. The only light is on Sunday. What was the sensible decision? The sensible decision was that notwithstanding many declarations and more music, not even notwithstanding the choice and a torch and a collection, notwithstanding the celebrating hat and a vacation and even more noise than cutting, notwithstanding Europe and Asia and being overbearing, withstanding more cultivation, not even notwithstanding an elephant and a strict occasion, not even withstanding more cultivation and some seasoning, not even with drowning and with the ocean being encircling, not even with more likeness and in any cloud, not even with terrific sacrifice of pedestrianism and special resolution, not even more likely to be pleasing. The care with which the rain is wrong, and the green is wrong, and the white is wrong, the care with which there is a chair and plenty of breathing, the care with which there is incredible justice and likeness, all this makes a magnificent asparagus, and also a fountain